design for Western, or do you mostly design for English?
Yeah, I would. I think that the content that I've put out on social media kind of attracts more of an English based client, but I wouldn't turn it down if someone wanted. I mean, I could do more of a Western. I, look at like what Ralph Lauren has done with, everything's kind of English. And then he did the whole RL line with, like his Colorado ranch. And I would, my husband has been trying to talk me into redoing his office, and that's how he wants it. Like he's been watching Yellowstone.
Yes.
Just a Yellowstone house.
That is so funny. It sounds just so much like my mom and my dad when, my dad wanted his office is like has the Western theme in it, and my mom's office has the English theme in it. So yeah. And Yellowstone is a really, I mean, every detail in there, has been, I don't know, it's just amazing when you watch it. And we talked to the people who actually did the hats and some of the clothing for them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Burns hats. So that was fun to talk to them.
Yeah, I think just watching the show, though, like, I think it's getting people, like, excited to get back into riding, too.
Yeah.
And just because I haven't seen, like, a ton of kids, I guess, my age get into it. But I feel like now, because, like, a show's coming out, they're like, oh, my gosh, I want to be a cowboy or a cowgirl. So, yeah.
No, I would love to do that. Yeah.
So you said
do a whole Yellowstone.
Redesigning your husband's office. Where do you find like these really cool equestrian pieces? Do you find them at estate sales, or do you find them online? How does that work?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot is online now. That's one nice thing that COVID did for us is, it's a lot easier to shop online. And I've connected with a lot of people on Instagram and follow a lot of different shops, and just really cool because if you think about like, oh, I'm going to go shopping today, and you go to a website and you look at what they have that day, and then 2 weeks later you might have forgotten about that shop. But if they're posting every day, like, hey, here's a new find, it's like you're keeping up with everybody's inventory all the time. So I love Shop the Polo House. She's Allison. She's in Chicago. I love her stuff. She's kind of the first place I go to when I need a little something for a bookcase, like really interesting bookends or little trinket, dishes and boxes and things like that. I like cherish.com. That's more of, it's not an equestrian site. It's just kind of general antiques, but they do end up having some really interesting things. I found a riding helmet from London, from like the 60s or something. And it's like $30,
Wow.
That's cool.
Those finds are so awesome.
yeah, that was a cool find. And and it's this tiny little helmet. I mean, I love, and that, it's worn on the inside. I mean, somebody wore it. I don't know who fit into this tiny little helmet, but I love stuff like that has a story behind it. And I just kind of hold it in my hands, like, I wonder who wore this and what did they do? Did they fox hunt with it? So yeah, those are kind of my top two. And then, I found some really interesting things on eBay, actually. And when I'm looking for, I'd like to collect silver trophies. And, when you're looking for something specific, like an equestrian trophy, then you kind of have to expand your search to the whole world, and not just, like my little section of the US. So, I found some really cool things in England, and shipping's not cheap, but sometimes it's more than the item that I'm buying. But it's worth it when you're getting a trophy from like 1924, and it's cool. It's again like a little piece of history. So.
Do you find in your area that you're in that you can get more horse equestrian things? Like around here, we don't really. In Ohio, we do have some things, but not, we just don't find it here. Do you have like thrift stores and things like that you can, or estate sales that have more of these things in your area?
Not a lot of equestrian stuff. I mean, we do have a lot of thrift stores, and we have a really great flea market, but I don't know. I mean, when I was in Middleburg, in October and went into the tack shop there, the Middleburg Tack Exchange. I just thought, gosh, I wish we had something like this in Nashville. I mean, we have a Dover saddlery, you know, that's in, I mean, like every big city does, but yeah, we don't really have like a kind of an equestrian based thrift shop, but you can find things. I mean, there's one antique store here that they do seem to get some prints and like maybe like a set of 4 fox hunting prints or something, and some bookends. You kind of have to pick through a lot of stuff, and I don't go there enough to keep up with their inventory, and they don't post as often as someone like the Polo House, you know, does. So yeah, but I mean, that's why I like shopping online, because, you know, as long as people are photographing it well and giving you an accurate description of the item, then it's just like shopping in person, I think.
Are there certain things that you keep an eye out for, like gold accents, or obviously equestrian items, but different things like tweed or
Yes, I love tweed.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yes, I think we all know about my love affair with tweed and trophies. Yeah, I kind of have a sweet spot for silver trophies. I don't know why, but I don't need any more. And still, you know, when someone posts, now I kind of have a running joke with the Polo House. They post something and I just post an emoji back like la 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 la. I don't I'm not seeing this. I don't need any more. Oh shoot, I'm buying it. But you know, if I see something I like to just go ahead and get it and collect it. And sometimes I use it for a client, and you know, I just like to buy things that I like, and I will find a place for it. You know, I don't always go shopping with something in mind, like I need to put this kind of a bowl here. You know, it's just I've collected things over the years that I like. And then when I redid my office, and you know, I had a lot of books on my shelves, and I took a lot of them down. I got rid of a lot of books, and I wanted to have space for the accessories that I had collected and that, you know, I didn't have room for before because I had so many books. And I wasn't reading those books. You know, I would rather see the accessories and all these treasures that I had found. So
that's what I have, are a lot of books. Maybe I need to, and I'm not reading the books, and so maybe I should pull those down.
I just did that with my bookcase, and it made a huge
That's right, you did.
difference.
Yeah.
I've read things about, you know, organizing and cleansing, and I can't remember if it might have been Marie Kondo, but you know, she said that things don't want to just sit stagnant. You know, like your books don't want to just sit there unread and unloved. Like if you're not using something or a piece of clothing, you know, give it away and say, thank you for coming into my life. Like that was a great book that I read, but now give it to someone else who's going to enjoy it. You know, I just gave away a cookbook recently that I never used. And I felt kind of bad about giving it away because it's a pretty book, but I thought, there's a person out there that's going to take this book and who's going to love cooking from it every day, and, you know, cooking meals for their family. And they're going to say, I love this book. And that's a better use for it than sitting on my shelf collecting dust. Right. So,
yeah.
Did you, how did this gradually come along? Did you go to school to get into this business, or have you always loved, gathering things and making, like, did you start this as a child, or how did this happen?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I know a lot of designers, and I think we all have the same story that, you know, we rearranged our furniture as a child, or we loved playing with doll houses because we moved the furniture around, or, you know, yeah, when I was a kid, my dad would buy houses and gut them and fix them up and sell them. And so I would go to job sites with him and help him pick out materials. And, I just love the process, the construction, and I love seeing the end result. And he took me to a house one time that he was thinking about buying, and it was a 60s ranch. And I think it was the original owner that hadn't been touched since the 60s. And so we were walking through, and he was asking me, you know, what would you do in this room? What would you change? And I was probably, I don't know, 8 or 9. And It's like, well, that green shag carpet's disgusting. That I would rip that out right away. And the wall paneling has to go, and the popcorn ceiling's awful. And, it's like I could already see the vision and what I wanted to do. And I started getting really excited, like, let's buy this house. I just want to rip out this carpet. And now I look back, I'm like, it was green. I wanted to rip it out. Are you crazy? And then when we left, his realtor called and said, what happened in there? Like, what did you say? He's like, what are you talking about? And she said, well, the owner just called and said that she was listening to you on the intercom, and she will not sell a house to a little girl who's going to come and just tear it apart.
Oh, no.
Oh. So yeah, he did not get to buy that house, but yeah, it's just I don't know, I just already had a vision. I could see what I wanted to do to the space. And then I remember seeing an Architectural Digest when I was probably about 10, and flipping through it, it hit me like, this is a job. Like, I knew that my dad did it for a living, but he wasn't a designer. He just had good taste. But it didn't occur to me that interior design was like an actual profession. And so I said, well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be an interior designer. And my dad said, no, you will never make enough money. Pick another job. So I went to college, and he said, you need to do something like, major in economics with an emphasis in financial accounting. You can do anything with that. And I started off, and, but I was taking art history and architecture classes on the side, just, for fun. And it, I love the art, the history, the design, the architecture. That led me to Italy for a year abroad, and traveled all over Europe studying architecture. And it just really reignited my passion from my childhood. I didn't care about making money. I knew this was my path. So I feel very fortunate that I was able to start off my career at an architecture firm. Then I interned with a designer, and I've just never wanted to do anything else. I love my job.
Yeah. That's cool.
It's very cool. And you have a very timeless design. I feel like throughout the years I've paid attention to design, we went from, super white walls to farmhouse to now this whole maximalism idea, and the green coming into a trend. And I feel like the thing...
I started that.
You did start that. And
I love it.
Like, some of the stuff that you're doing will be around for ages, and no one will even question it, because it is such a timeless design. So how do you maintain having a timeless design without, falling into some of the trend traps?
Yeah.
Well, I just pull from history, and, there are things that have been around for so many years that people still love, like a really great wingback chair or a leather Chesterfield sofa. Those things have been in an English countryside manner, for a couple hundred years. And so I think those kinds of things, they just don't go out of style. People love them, working with leather and tartan. Tartan patterns have been around for hundreds of years, and they're just classic. And so I think that, there's a way to modernize it a little bit. Maybe you can change the profile of a wingback chair and make it a little bit more modern. But if it's upholstered in a tartan fabric, then it's still a nod to the classic style.
What do you say for wall colors and things like that? We actually moved like 3 years ago, and we painted the whole house. Our house is so dark. We live in the woods, so it had dark colors in it, and it was too dark. We have one room that has all wood tongue and groove in it, but it's kind of this. It's not dark, but it's not light, and I don't know if there's a color that you could actually say that it is. But the farmhouse trend was in, and everybody's like, you need to paint that white, and I just couldn't do it. I just was like, I just can't do it. But if you have something like that, do you feel like it's better to go trendy or to stay with something that it is and try to work around it? Or what would you say to something like that?
Well, it really depends on where the room is in the house, what kind of natural lighting it gets, what the purpose of the room is, how you want to feel in that room. Because I don't just say, well, yeah, dark colors are really great. I mean, there's a time and a place for it. I love a dark color in a bedroom. It makes it feel like a cave, and it's cozy and it's good for sleeping. But, I don't want to put a dark color in an office where I need to feel energized and inspired. And a dark color in that kind of a space can feel oppressive. So, if the paneling is in a room that doesn't get a lot of natural light, and let's say it's a breakfast room or something where you don't want a dark color, again, you don't want a kitchen or anything to feel oppressive. So then I would say, just leave it the natural color. And if it needs to be protected, then put a coat of poly on it, like a clear coat that will really bring out the richness of the wood. But yeah, I think that painting it white has been a trendy thing. And so I wouldn't necessarily recommend that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just depends on the lighting that you get in the room. If it's a really dark room, naturally, if you don't have a lot of windows, then I definitely wouldn't go darker.
So if you're trying to make your home more equestrian, if you're trying to bring in touches of your horses and different things, what are some pieces that you can get, or even like what types of photos should you be putting up on your walls to bring in that equestrian touch?
I think additionally, what color palette do you like to stick around?
Okay. Well, when I was doing my office, I already had some tack in here, but I just went out to my garage to see what I had, because I have a ton of bridles hanging on the wall. I have, rubber bins full of boots and helmets and saddle pads. And I just started pulling stuff out and spreading it out on the floor to see, what's usable. And I don't really care if it's dirty and broken. If there's a history to it, then I wanted to bring it in as part of my story. I just didn't, it was all in the garage because I didn't have a place for it, but why am I still hanging on to my polo helmet that I wore 20 years ago? I don't know. I guess I'm still waiting for someone to call me and say like, hey, we really need you to play in this women's charity tournament, and I'm like, that's cool. I've got my helmet, and it's not moldy at all. Really. It's fine. But I started bringing that stuff into my office because, again, it's just part of my story. And that's stuff that we all have. I mean, if you go out to your garage, your tack room, I promise you have extra stuff that you're not using. And maybe it's a halter from a horse that you've lost that means a lot to you. And it's not doing anyone any favors, sitting in a tack trunk. Bring it into your home and hang it on the wall where you can see it every day and appreciate it. So that's kind of where I start with bringing in equestrian elements. And then, if someone said, well, I just don't have enough tack, or I don't have anything that I could bring in, then I would say we could look at eBay or some of those, Cherish and find things like the helmet that I found. I knew that I wanted a black helmet, and I didn't have anything that was pretty enough. I mean, the black helmet that I had from fox hunting was pretty beat up. So I found one on Cherish, and nobody knows. Well, I guess now the whole world knows that it wasn't mine, but it doesn't really matter because it just kind of symbolizes the black helmet that I had, that I wore, and so I think that even if you don't have enough of your own tack, or, things like that, you can find things online and incorporate them. So I took stirrup irons off of a saddle and just used them on a dresser. I used a bit and reins and wrapped it around my curtains as a tie back. So those are things that I think we all have laying around, extra bits, reins. But I would just say, find something that's meaningful. Like I said, like a horse that has passed, and, the stuff they leave behind, because you get a new horse and then you get new tack. But the tack that other horse left behind is still meaningful to you. And so bring it into your house. And then in terms of color palettes, I think that the equestrian lifestyle has a lot of really interesting colors, and I just pull that into the house. There's a lot of browns and blacks, and I love green because it really makes me feel like I'm in nature, and that's how I feel when I'm on my horse. You know, I'm out in nature connecting, and so that's kind of how I feel in my office. I've brought in a lot of green, and so I kind of feel like I'm outside. I even have a tree. And then, yeah, like I said, all the blacks and browns really tie in with all the tack. And those are kind of colors that we associate with horses.
Do you feel like, so if some of us have done all sorts of things, you know, we started out Western when I was little and then moved out to the house where we started Ram. And we did hunt like the English, you know, and then we went and we started to do fox hunting. And then my mom kind of got into some dressage. So we've kind of done it all. And can you decorate with all of it? Or do you think you need to keep it just like it's all English or it's polo or it's, you know, like, what's your thoughts on that?
No, I've mixed a lot of different things. I mean, I have a Western bridle hanging on a hook with my English helmet. You know, my polo saddle pad is kind of like an Argentinian pad that almost looks a little Southwestern. And, you know, that's with my polo saddle. I mean, I've mixed everything. I have my mallets, you know, next to my hunt gear. I mean, it's all part of your story. So if they're all things that you've done and that you've collected, you know, it's your story as a horse person. So I don't think there's any reason to separate English from Western. You know, you're telling your story in your house, and that's the most important thing, your story with horses.
You've talked a lot about like your story, but I don't think we've actually heard your story with horses. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. There's a lot to that story. Well, I started when I was 5. My parents exposed me to a lot of different things, you know, ballet, piano, soccer, horseback riding, and said, what do you want to do? And I said, I just want to ride. I don't want to do anything else. And that was it from 5. I mean, just, you know, pony club, and summertime, they would drop me off first thing in the morning before work. And I was just talking to my mom about this recently, like, you just dropped me off like 8, and then you just came back at 5. Did you know if anyone was watching me? Or, you know, like, now you wouldn't do that, but I just hung out at the barn all day.
Yeah. Right.
So, you know, and then I had my friends, and we would, you know, like sing the Mr. Ed song together and brush our ponies' tails and, you know, just clean tack because just liked being at the barn. So, and then I got into polo in high school, and we got a polo pony. We didn't play polo, but we were sort of given this horse, and he just happened to be a polo pony, but I was using him for pony club and tried to make him be a dressage horse. And then someone invited us to play polo, and like, my dad said, well, we do have a polo pony. And so we took him out, and he was just amazing. And so we got into polo, fox hunting, and then I got my horse Alice, and I took her to college with me, played on the polo team at UC Santa Barbara. And so that was great to get to take my horse to college. There were only 5 schools on the West Coast that had a polo team. So that really narrowed down my search of schools. I knew I was going to a school with a polo team. So I ended up in Santa Barbara, and it was amazing. So yeah, I've got to play polo through college. And then after college, when my parents said, okay, we no longer pay for your horse activities, then that kind of ended my polo career, because the team had 30 horses that were donated to us, and I could ride 6 days a week. And then after graduating, it was just me and my one horse, and, you know, and my entry level job, internship. So that was kind of the end of polo, except for a few tournaments I was invited to play in. But so I just had Alice, and we continued to fox hunt because that's something that's easy to do with one horse. And I had her till she was 29. Wow. So I had her from the time I was 16 to 36. Wow. So that was a big part of my life, going through high school, college, all my 20s. We moved across the country, got married, had a baby. I mean, all these things that she experienced with me. So it's a really cool time in my life to have her. She was a consistent rock, through that whole time. So, yeah, but she passed away 4 years ago. And now I have a horse named Remy. He's a quarter horse paint. And it's been, it's when she passed, I didn't have a horse for about 5 months. And that's probably the longest that I have ever been without a horse. And my husband said, I don't like this version of you. Can you please just go find a horse? Immediately. I just was kind of moping around the house, and I don't have anything to do. This is normally the time I would go to the barn. And, so I didn't really know who I was without a horse. It was like, big piece of my life was missing. And so I found Remy, or Remy found me, and so it's good.
Yeah. How often do you ride like today?
I go out there about 4 or 5 days a week. I don't always get to ride, and sometimes we're when it gets dark so early, working during the day, and I pick up my kid, and then we go after school, and it gets dark at like 4:20. It's right. Really cuts into our time, but I do get to go out and see him, and at very least we watch him eat dinner. And my son he's in kindergarten, and he's learning to read, and so he'll sit on top of a pile of hay and read to Remy as he's eating dinner. So even if I don't get to ride, I still get to go out and see him, and then I ride on the weekends. And
now, does your son have an interest in horses? It's sort of forced, I guess, because I have always taken him to the barn. I mean, even when he was a baby, I would just take him in his car seat and sort of park him right next to, Alice, and tie her up. I totally trusted her. And I mean, there were times where I'd put him in his stroller and I'd go into the tack room. I'm like, Alice, can you watch him for me? So I'm going to run to the bathroom. You got this, right? But her nickname was the babysitter. I mean, she always took care of little kids, and she's amazing. So yeah, he's been going to the barn with me since he was probably, 6 weeks old. Wow. I have pictures, walking out to the pasture to get Alice, and he's in my little backpack, and just smiling and all excited to go see the horses. And so I think that he loves going to the barn. He loves cleaning stalls, actually. He loves working at the barn. We have a pony that nobody rides. I mean, they love having her, but I don't know that he's going to be a rider for life. But I do think he enjoys being out there, and it's just good for kids to be around the horses and having to take care of them. And so and my daughter is 2, and she loves going out and see the horses. She will get on the pony a little bit, but no, she might be a rider. She seems more, her face just really lights up when she sees the horses. For him, we get to the barn and he says hi to Remy, and then, he's like, all right, I'm going to go clean stalls.
Right. There's just something, you can just tell. My niece, their cousin, she's got an older brother and sister, and even all of us were around it, but not one of us picked up that like horse, like we love them, but there's just something about the kids, like you can tell there's a sparkle in their eye. They talk about them. They want the horse, they want horse things to play with, and our little Anna is that way. So we're excited. We're, talking about, hopefully we have a very open property here. It's on a busy highway, and we've talked about getting a barn for quite some time. So we're in the process of doing that. Hopefully this year. We've said it every year, hopefully this year. And then COVID came and then, kind of changed everything. Yeah. But because I feel like right now I even though it was, like you said, forced, we had horses, we had to feed them. It was our chores. But now I feel like I want that back. I'm really missing it, missing to have a stall that we could put them in, or, they're outside, they're in pasture and they've got shelters and things like that. But it's just not the same as having that ability to have a place to, put them where you can groom them and things like that. So I'm looking forward to, hopefully this year will be the year that we get to go out and be with them more.
I hope so. Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. We lived in Denver for a few years, and we rented a house that it came with a barn, and the owner just kind of left all of his animals behind and said, "Can you take care of those animals?"
Oh, wow.
And so we had dogs and cats and chickens and rabbits and horses. And
wow.
And it was my first time living, I grew up in California. So to go to Denver, I was adjusting to the winter. And then my school started at, I don't know, like 7:20 or something ridiculous. And so I was up at 5 in the dark feeding all these animals, and it was a lot of work, but man, I learned a lot about responsibility and doing that by myself. I have to go into the laundry room and fill up a big bucket of hot water to take out to the troughs to pour on top of the frozen ice. And then, I'm like with a pitchfork trying to break up the ice and so they can have some water.
Right.
But it was a really good experience. I think that every kid needs that. And especially if you are a rider, that sort of thing will separate the diehards from, people that just want to take lessons on the weekends. And now that kind of discipline, I remember that now when I'm out at the barn and it's 20 degrees and I realize my horse has an abscess and I'm soaking his foot and, ripping the duct tape apart and my hands are frozen. I'm like, yeah, this isn't fun right now, but I still wouldn't give this up.
Right.
The alternative, not having a horse, that's not an alternative.
Now, does your husband ride as well, or does he just is he really supportive?
He is really supportive. He does ride. He has ridden. It's changed a little bit since we've had kids. And so now it's like, all right, I'm going to go have my time at the barn. You take care of the kids. So he used to ride with me a lot more. But when I first met him, he was a musician. And I took him to meet Alice and I said, why don't you get on? And he said, no, I don't know how to ride. And I said, well, this is the perfect horse to teach you. She's a great teacher. We call her the babysitter. I can put little kids on her. And he's like, yeah, I know, but I have a show this weekend. I have to play guitar. What if I fell off and broke my hand? That would really affect my show. I'm like, do you want to date me? Then I need you to get on the horse right now. It's like, okay, yes. So he got on and, she totally took care of him. And so he did ride with me. And we've done things like, we went to Costa Rica on our honeymoon and I booked what I thought was going to be just like a nice little ride, around this mountain. And it turned into like a 4-hour galloping up a volcano.
Oh my.
And then we ran into a bull that we had to charge. And, he's like, I don't know that I signed up for this. But he was a good enough rider that he could handle it. So, but a lot of that was learning from Alice because she was such a good teacher and so kind and gentle that a new rider could gain confidence on her. So, yeah, but he doesn't ride that much anymore.
So going back to the interior design, if somebody wants to contact you and they're not in your area, can you still work with them, or does somebody have to be in your area to work with them?
No, I work with people all over, and it's nice. Before COVID, I had projects out of state and was running things by FaceTime, and it's a lot easier now that everybody's used to the virtual way of doing things. So, no, when I moved here, I still had a project in California, and I was going back and forth, and I've had that client bought a house in New Hampshire, and I went up there and worked on that. I mean, normally I need to go to see the house initially and take my own measurements and get a feel for the space and the people and learn about, what they want. Because even if they walk me through the house on Zoom, I still need to get a feel for it.
Yeah.
But I have completely gutted houses, done like a whole renovation and furnishings by only visiting the house, 2, maybe 3 times. And the third time is usually to go at the end and to celebrate with the client and have it photographed. And, so it's not necessarily a part of the design process, but it's something I like to do at the end to celebrate with them. So I had some clients in Nashville that we had designed a whole custom new construction house for them. And then they decided to move to Pittsburgh. And so they sold the lot and the plans and found a house there. And since we had already worked together for a year on their new construction house, we were really familiar with each other, and I knew their style and their goals. And so it just made sense for them to have me work on the Pittsburgh house. So I went up there probably twice, and then renovated this whole house, and then went up at the end to photograph it. So I can definitely work with people all over. If it's a big renovation, I usually like to have a local architect. That really helps. If they can be doing the plans and they know how to get through the permitting process with their local jurisdiction, things like that really help me. So I'm not learning, how a building department that I'm not accustomed to working with, if they have a historical commission or zoning requirements, then it's a lot easier to have a local person on the team that knows how to get through those steps. But no, I work with people all over, so which is great. I mean, if I was only limited to my area, then it makes especially now that I have niched my business, I need to open up a wider pool of possibilities, not just limited to my area. But
so where can people find you on social media?
Instagram is where I live the most. That's Lindsay Hunter Design. Lindsay, Lindsay. And I'm on Facebook as well. And my website is lindsayhunterdesign.com, but I am usually on Instagram. So that's where I live. You can message me and I try to respond in a timely manner. Kids aren't, crying.
Yeah.
But I love using Instagram. I love the community, and I've connected with a lot of people and a lot of equestrian businesses, and it's really changed my business, because I thought it was going to be hard to transition into a niche. But once I found my horse community online, it just felt like it's a small community, but it's also big, and it's made me a lot more confident going into a niche, knowing I have a lot of people that are behind me on this. So it's been great having Instagram.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll enter our next segment, Canter Banter.
Do you love horses and live the equestrian lifestyle? Be sure to check out our brand new blog at www.yourhorsefarm.com. We publish 3 posts per week and feature a free printable equine checklist every month. Yourhorsefarm.com is a great equine online resource, so be sure to share with all the horse lovers in your life. And remember, laugh much and ride often. This podcast is brought to you by Ram Horse Fencing and Stalls, the one-stop shop for your horse farm. Ram is family-owned and operated and has been in business for over 30 years. We welcome you to call in and speak with an expert about your next project today at 866-653-8984. Again, that's 866-653-8984.
So my horse Alice, the Palomino that I had, when we bought her, I asked the owner if there was anything I should know about her, if he could tell me a little bit about her history. He just gave me one piece of paper, had very little information about her. And he said, her full name is Alice's Restaurant. She's from Argentina. Don't use a whip. Like, okay, there's got to be a story there, but okay, I won't use a whip. And so a few years later, my dad was playing her in a polo game. And, she knew a lot about the game, a lot more than we did. And so there were times where, he was trying to push her into a play and she would back off. Like, she knew it wasn't the right move. And he'd get really frustrated. Like, but I told her to do it. I'm like, yeah, but you just need to listen to her and trust her gut. So halfway through the chukker, he comes running over to the trailer and he's yelling, I need a whip. He said she wasn't listening. I'm like, yeah, you don't want to do that. He's like, give me a whip. So I hand it to him and he just goes, crack, crack, crack 3 times on her rump. I'm like, oh, this is not going to go over well. And, he thought he was going to ride back out and back into the game. And she just bolted the other direction. She was mad and ran all the way down the field, past the goalpost. And I'm like, but the game's over there. Where are you going? And he's a big, strong guy. He had no control. She was mad. Oh, so she ran past the goalpost. And at the end of the field, that's where all the trailers park and cars and the horses are tied up. And she ran around this trailer and then there was kind of a jam. There was a car and trailers parked and she didn't have anywhere to go. And so instead of stopping, she jumped over the hood of a car.
Oh my goodness.
But she was a polo pony, not a jumper. And so her back foot kind of came down on the hood as she was coming down. And of course it was a Mercedes. It wasn't a cheap car. No. And my dad's still on her, like holding his mallet, just in shock. Like he's just along for the ride. There's nothing he can do. And so that was an expensive day. And in money and in pride, she completely took him out of the game. And the polo club gave him a trophy. They found a little car, like a little Mercedes. It was the same make and model and color. And a little plastic palomino they glued to the hood of the car and said, you are a legend. You will go down history in this club alongside the polo player that lost control of his horse and ended up in the pool at the clubhouse.
Oh boy.
So Alice is a legend.
Oh, that is
I don't think he ever did that again. I don't think he ever whipped her.
Well,
like that.
She has just an attitude then. She knows what she wants and she can tell you how to play the game and don't make her mad.
Yeah. I don't know what happened to her. I don't know what the history was, but there was something there and it just, it like triggered her, So, had to be a Mercedes.
That is so funny and a trophy to go with it. So cute.
We hope you enjoyed listening to our podcast and encourage you to share with all your equestrian family and friends. You can tune into the Late Night Riders podcast show every Friday night. Each episode will be uploaded exclusively on YouTube, where you can subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with all of our latest shows. Do you have a topic you'd like us to discuss? We want to hear from you. You may email us at podcast@ramfence.com or feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you again for listening.